So, with that being said, we are keeping this show rolling. I hope you're all energized and hyped because, like you know me, I stay energized and hyped because when we talk about the planet and we talk about conservation and rainforest protection and bringing youth on board to be able to better humanity for the future, these are things that we all need to be excited about. And I am excited to bring on our next guest, yes, on board. And let me double check to make sure I have them on board. Gabby is on board here. I see her, and Julie as well too. National Geographic Young Explorers. Yes, this is going to be absolutely amazing. We're going to have a fantastic discussion about the next generation protecting our planet. Kind of ties into what we talked about with the Reserva, bringing our youth on board and empowering them and empowering others to be able to further protect our beautiful, beautiful planet. So without further ado, enough of me. I am first going to bring on Gabby. Here she comes, Gabby. Welcome on board. And I'm bringing on Julie as well too. What's up, Gabby and Julie? How y'all doing? Are y'all hyped to be part of this festival today?
Extremely.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, this is absolutely amazing. I read, I didn't mess up your bio, did I? Guys, I already messed up once, so let me know if I didn't get anything correct, all right? We're going to have a discussion because you guys are founders and participants of Tideturners, correct? So I'm excited to learn a little bit more about Tideturners, and I'm sure the audience is excited to learn more about Tideturners. And like I said, I was part of the Reserva group. I'm on the board of directors, and we're all about bringing our youth on board and empowering our youth to be participants, active participants in conservation. So I'm excited to hear what you guys have to bring to the table. So the show is yours. I'm going to bounce out. If you need anything, holler at me. But once you guys go through your details, we'll come back on board and continue our hype conversation, chat, do a little Q&A afterwards. All right?
Amazing. Thank you.
All right.
Great. Sounds amazing.
All right, you're on a roll.
Cool. Yeah, we'll just get started. So hi, everyone. We hope you're having a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you're tuning in from. It's an honor to be speaking with you at this festival today. I'm Gabby.
And I'm Julie.
And we're both from a youth-led environmental education project called Tideturners, but we'll get to that in a little bit.
So firstly, we're going to start off by recapping our journeys into environmental advocacy, as we've had pretty varying experiences. So Gabby, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, for sure. My environmental journey started a few years ago. I grew up in Malaysia and was always inspired by the incredible beaches and forests all around me. But I didn't really know about any of the threats that were facing our planet, such as climate change, until a school geography trip to a coral reef nursery in Langkawi, Malaysia. That field trip was kind of a turning point for me, as while I was so inspired and amazed at this nursery of thriving, rehabilitated corals, I was also shocked by a trip to a beach that was littered with plastic and fishing nets, and a marine biologist's speech about the huge threat that issues like the climate crisis pose to our oceans. It was, I guess, the first time that the urgency and scale of these issues really dawned on me. So I was very, very lucky to have a geography teacher who entertained my many, many questions about corals and climate over the coming week, and was inspired to get involved with environmental advocacy from then on. So one of my first steps was an assembly in school about coral conservation and the need to protect species, which was very embarrassingly involved me dressing up in a dory costume to grab the attention of the younger students. Since then, I've worked with over a dozen projects and youth organizations, including previously serving on the World Oceans Day Youth Council and working on initiatives with my local council, the Youth Strike for Climate Group, National Geographic, and most recently, Tideturners. It's been an awesome, empowering journey, and I'm really grateful for my teachers for helping me get started. And over time, I also had the pleasure of speaking to and working with youth at schools and conferences around the world. And a common theme that I noticed was that most students had a huge desire to get involved with environmental action, but weren't exactly sure how to start. So while I felt really fortunate that I had such a special opportunity to learn about these issues from my geography field trip and teacher, I also noticed that there was a gap in climate education across many school curriculums, which is what we're here to talk about today.
Thank you so much, Gabby. So Yeah, unlike Gabby, I am sort of on the opposite end of the spectrum. My journey only really began quite recently, and although I've always been a long time admirer of our nature and of animals, like so many others, I had been taught about the climate crisis as a far off matter that only really impacted polar bears in some distant corner of the globe. And so, while of course, as I grew older, I knew this was most definitely not the case, I felt both powerless to stop the growing crisis, while also placing a disproportionate amount of hope on our current politicians and technology, really just wishing for some heroic cape wearing figure to come and save the day and miraculously solve the issue. For me, working in a primary school is where my eyes were opened firsthand to the fact that the environmental education currently being delivered to young students had barely progressed at all from when I was in their place. I was really outraged just by how the climate and ecological emergency is still being misdiagnosed as both a distant problem as well as one that is up to the individual to solve by simply showering less or using fewer plastic straws. So since then, my eyes have been opened and I've been involved in a number of initiatives, primarily affiliated with Extinction Rebellion, COI 16, which is the youth version of COP26, and of course, Tideturners to act on our undeniable need for broad, all-encompassing climate education in all levels of schooling across the world. So with that, to introduce environmental education more fully, we have a short clip from the North American Association for Environmental Education that we'd like to show you.
Environmental education is incredibly varied in where and how it happens, but the foundation of the field can be traced back to a definition crafted at the very first international conference focused on environmental education. Bringing together leaders from 66 countries, it was held in Tbilisi, Georgia in 1977. The Tbilisi Declaration defines environmental education as a learning process that increases people's knowledge and awareness about the environment and its associated challenges, develops the necessary skills and expertise to address the challenges, and fosters attitudes, motivations, and commitments to make informed decisions and take responsible action. Now, there is a lot to unpack in this definition. First, EE is a learning process that is focused on lifelong learning, starting in the earliest years and continuing throughout our lives. It is about engaging individuals as well as communities and organizations. EE increases knowledge about the environment and the social and economic issues that influence both the health of the environment and our quality of life. It is about everything from natural resources like clean air and clean water to healthy food and healthy communities. With knowledge also comes awareness about threats to the environment, the decisions we make that lead to environmental degradation, and global challenges like climate change and overfishing. But knowing about or being aware of environmental issues and their impact on our quality of life isn't enough. We need skills to solve problems. EE empowers people by giving them the tools and practice to take informed action. It also influences attitudes, the values and assumptions underlying our behavior. Finally, EE motivates people to take action to protect our natural resources and create a more just and sustainable future for all. In short, environmental education has the power to transform lives and society. It is a critical tool in expanding the environmental movement and creating healthier and more civically engaged communities.
Reasons why environmental education is so important.
So, first of all, there is a huge desire from teachers, parents, and students for climate education. There is growing awareness of our most crucial environmental issues, as a 2018 survey by Wakefield Research found that 77% of respondents said environmental issues were more important to them than they were a couple of years prior. And studies have shown that 4 in 5 parents want schools to teach about climate education, 70% of students want to learn about climate change, and 86% of teachers believe that climate change should be taught in schools. These statistics reflect an overwhelming desire and need for climate education to be included in our school curriculums. In addition, environmental education is also really important because now more than ever, youth are rising up to advocate for the future we need and want, because we know exactly what the consequences are of inaction. As such, we think that students deserve to learn about the issues we will be facing. Not only this, but we deserve to be equipped with the skills to be able to combat the effects of the crisis. And fun fact, in the US, approximately 25% of all school students have taken some form of climate action, ranging from strikes, rallies, or writing to their representatives.
Yeah, and moreover, research has linked receiving climate education to more environmentally friendly habits, which in turn leads to an individual's lifetime carbon emissions falling. One study published in the PLOS journal found that if just 16% of high school students in middle and high income countries were to receive climate education, this could result in almost 19 gigatons of carbon emissions reduction by 2050, which is a really significant amount. According to the experts at San Jose State University, a climate education helps youth feel personal agency and empowerment in the face of the climate crisis. And we completely agree, and this is completely in line with what we've noticed in our work. As youth advocates who've spoken to students all around the world, climate education is an essential part of feeling well equipped to take on climate change, which helps combat the heavy eco-anxiety that is propagated by the news and social media. These findings were based on only 16% of high school students in middle and high income countries, which leads us to wonder, imagine what the impact could be if we could get climate education into education systems all around the world.
And so while it seems quite logical that this type of education should be implemented all across the world, the figures show us that we are nowhere near this.
Now we like to spotlight one campaign that is dedicated to climate education. While I was still in the UK for school, I had the wonderful opportunity to join Teach the Future in the Houses of Parliament to launch the first ever youth written bill, the English Climate Education Emergency Act. This act would ensure that the climate emergency is incorporated into education at all levels, and that funding is provided so all students, learners, and teachers are prepared for their future and the responsibility of preserving a habitable planet for future generations, as well as funding that would help ensure that education buildings are able to achieve net zero emissions.
Yeah, so a little background on Teach the Future. Teach the Future is a youth-led campaign committed to urgently repurpose the entire education system around the climate emergency and ecological crisis. And research done by them revealed that while 92% of teachers in the UK are concerned about climate change, and approximately the same percentage, around 90%, agree that climate change education should be compulsory in schools, a whopping 70% of teachers feel they have not received adequate training to educate students on climate change, its implications for the environment and societies around the world, and also how these implications can be addressed. They also uncover a number of other extremely staggering, unsatisfying statistics, where 41% of teachers say climate change is rarely or never mentioned in their schools. Only 17% say that climate change is mentioned in core subjects other than science and geography, and that just 5% of teachers say that climate change is integral to many different aspects of the curriculum and teaching in their school. So you may feel overwhelmed by the numbers, quite a lot of numbers, but essentially this research shows the inadequacy of the UK education system to properly prepare young people for the future. And while these statistics are unique to the UK, they quite broadly reflect the international system as a whole and an overall lack of climate education in schools across the world.
Yeah, so learning about the importance of environmental education and noticing the gap inspired us to start Tideturners, which is what we're both working on today. As while we join students and teachers to advocate for education reform, we're hoping to fill the gap of environmental education starting now. So Tideturners is a youth-led environmental education project dedicated to inspiring awareness of increasing awareness of key environmental issues and facilitating greater youth engagement in advocacy and solutions. And through our initiatives and events, we aim to inspire collaboration, learning, and action, while equipping young people with the knowledge and skills to encourage solutions within their own local communities. Together, as cheesy as it sounds, we hope we can turn the tide against some of our most pressing environmental issues. And we're very proud to be supported by the National Geographic Young Explorer program. So yeah, we're gearing up to launch our free online climate resources and website during the summer, but I'm already so excited by the response we've gotten so far at our events. And that's about all from us today. We hope to have conveyed why exactly climate education is so important in empowering young people to take on the defining issues of our time. And yeah, we're happy to take on any questions.
That is absolutely amazing. This is great. I love having you both on board because, like I said yesterday, we had our wonderful group of Reserva, which is, all youth, talking about climate change and rainforest protection and getting us involved, getting us hands-on. At the beginning of this, I have so many questions, which are going to be great. And I'm sure you guys all have amazing answers for this. At the beginning, you guys talked about your inspirations, why you got into this. And you mentioned, Gabby, about being on a field trip. And I'm a big firm believer on hands-on engagement. You actually have to touch things. You have to get out there and experience. And that, especially for our youth, that's how you build those connections. What are different things that you guys are utilizing, whether it's through Tideturners or through other methods, other organizations, of more ways that youth can get hands-on, get active, get out there in the field, see, touch, experience different things to get better connected with what's happening right now with climate change?
Yeah, so one of the things we're doing is trying to encourage youth to be connected with their local communities and the environment around them, because everyone has such unique settings, and every community will require different solutions. So yeah, we're really encouraging youth to get involved in their local communities and take charge of advocating for what they want. And also, we're hoping to employ storytelling, and we've been interviewing a bunch of people all around the world to just spotlight different ways that people can get right into working on these issues. Nice.
How about you, Julie?
Yeah, so piggybacking off of what Gabby said, I think just more broadly in the UK, we have this great thing, Duke of Edinburgh Award, where it basically pushes kids at school to kind of go out and plan and their own expedition out in nature, and they have complete agency over this every step of the way. And I just think, having done that myself, for me, that kind of really inspired this connection to nature that I've had ever since I was a kid and started out doing those kind of things. So I think, just as you said, just those one-on-one interactions with nature, which is not being imposed on you by anyone else. It's your own kind of little adventure out in nature that you've planned. And it kind of, breeds that connection.
Awesome. While we're on the topic of inspiring our youth, what are both of your inspirations? People that you see doing unique work right now in the field of conservation or climate change, that are utilizing their voices in dynamic ways. Who do you guys look at as sources of inspiration that could be helpful for other people to do some more research on as well?
Yeah, so for me, a personal figure that I look up to quite a lot, which again goes back to the last question. Her name's Maya Rose Craig, or Bird Girl. She's quite well known in the UK, and she has basically, being a young birder, she went out with her parents quite a lot into nature, and from a young age would have that connection with nature. And being part of the POC community, she noticed that there weren't a lot of people who looked like her out in the British countryside. So she started this initiative Black to Nature, where she would get basically these families who POC families who didn't have direct access to nature and didn't really have that innate connection with nature because they just hadn't really been exposed to it, because perhaps lack of means to be able to get to somewhere like a green space. So she would take them out and would kind of pass on some or skill share with them about birding and bird watching, and would also just kind of orchestrate these fun events for them where everything would be fully like funded and paid for by her, well, not by her, but by the organization, and kind of take them out. And she noticed such like positive responses by these families who just completely just changed their view of nature and how they could feel so connected to the nature that they've previously felt so distant from. And yeah, so that's quite inspirational to me.
Nice. How about you, Gabby?
Yeah, I think I draw a lot of my inspiration just from the youth that I work with, like almost on a daily basis. Some examples are like the youth-led organizations that I've either read about or worked directly with, such as like Mock Cop 26. That's a good one to check out. Earth Uprising, Teach the Future, as we mentioned. Yeah, those are just a couple of the ones that are really inspiring, and they're all led by like young people, way younger than Julie and I are. So, and they're doing big things. So,
nice.
They're relentless in their efforts. So very inspiring.
That's fantastic. And that's really awesome, Julie, that you brought up your inspiration, because that work is happening in the UK, but very similar work happening here as well too. We had our own Black Birders kind of initiatives last year. I'm not sure if you heard about our Black Birders Week that we had over here, which was started because an individual in New York was harassed while he was bird watching, and it set this wave, especially with everything that was happening last summer with civil unrest and Black Lives Matter movements. It was really, really cool to see a lot of youth voices coming to the forefront. And you had so many people from all sorts of different backgrounds. We ended up having Black Birders Week. We had Black Herpetologist Week. We had all these different fields that traditionally people of color hadn't been involved in. And it was really all led by youth, students that were currently studying in their particular fields or had interest in, but never really knew other people that looked like them. So it's always amazing to be able to see our youth come together to be able to start these new trends. It's absolutely amazing. I want to kind of switch modes and kind of talk a little bit about Tideturners, because I think this is an awesome program that you have in place and something that's well needed. I talk about this all the time when I'm doing my outreach work in schools. We need to start doing finance classes, and we need to have classes on climate change and conservation, right? These are real tangible things that we can actually walk away with that affect our students. We can throw away all the, PE, whatever class. We need finance, we need finance education, and we need environmental education. Those are critically important to our future. What kind of methods are you utilizing right now? I know you're doing a lot of collaboration, like with Teach for the Future and different things. What do you think is the most the fundamental way fundamental approach that you have to go towards this in order to be able to implement this globally? I know you're starting in the UK and hoping to expand, but this is a global problem, something that needs to be instituted in schools globally. What do you kind of see as the most important first steps to kind of get this introduced and make it as expansive as it should be?
Yeah, so one of our core elements, I guess, is this focus on storytelling, because what we've noticed is the rise of eco-anxiety amongst people in our age group.
Yeah.
Just seeing all this negative news about the climate crisis and how our world is burning up and we have a deadline approaching and nothing's being done, for example. So focusing on storytelling about the potential solutions and communities already leading in terms of adaptation and mitigation. So just focusing on that and placing a positive lens onto climate education and trying to promote a love and appreciation for our environment instead of feeding into that overwhelmingness seen in the news and social media. So that's reflected in the classroom resources we're soon. We're going to publish soon. They're going to be free and put online for anyone to use.
Nice.
And also the events we have hosted and hope to host in the future. For example, Julie can tell you about our recent event about local action. So I think it's really inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we had the privilege of hosting a panel with, I think it was 6 amazing youths from 6 different countries all around the globe who spoke about their own initiatives that they set up. Just inspiring local action onto others. And just, I think a problem that I've definitely faced in the past is feeling like quite like disempowered and feeling that like as a young person, you're not really given the tools to, or even just, you're not even aware of the fact that you can take matters into your own hands and like actually do something about the crisis that we're facing. So it was just really inspiring for me as well, like moderating and Gabby, but also hopefully for the people who are watching to hear the stories of these activists who have made great ripples of change in their local communities doing vastly different things. So, yeah.
Nice. And Gabby, you brought up the resources, obviously for students that need those resources, but it's just as important for the teachers to get those resources, because you said in that statistic that you brought up, I believe, Julie, about how teachers don't feel they have the skills or the knowledge to be able to converse adequately and appropriately about climate change. What are different ways that through your program or through any other means that you're further empowering educators and teachers? Because it has to start from somewhere, right? That you have to fundamentally implement them into the classroom, but then you have to have those teachers given that confidence and giving them the tools that they need. Well, what other ways are you reassuring that the educators have access to that information?
Yeah, a lot of our outreach is actually done through schools. So we built up like a mailing list of various schools in Malaysia and the UK, and we're just connecting one by one with these departments, mostly geography departments within schools, and just providing what we've learned about how to best communicate climate change, and then also supporting them with resources they might need. And also, if they'd like us to run a workshop, they can, we'd be more than happy to help them.
Nice. That's awesome. That's awesome. And last but not least, before we wrap up here to our next session, this has been amazing, by the way. This is absolutely fantastic for everybody that's listening right now, of ways that we can get our youth involved and get our teachers and more programs involved to be able to be invested into our futures. For youth that are listening that want to kind of get involved or want to get their hands wet, what are some simple ways, simple beginning steps that any youth watching that wants to get involved, regardless if you're 5 years old, 10 years old, 15 years old, whatever, if you're kind of new to this, but you've been hearing about climate change and conservation, what's a quick, easy step, something that they could do to be involved and to be really invested in protecting our future?
I think a good first step would just be look around them and notice what the main issues are for their own communities, and then find like-minded people within their communities that are working against these issues, because we've noticed that you can't do this alone. So yeah, just look around for other youth-led organizations that are already working on the ground on these issues and try and get involved in any way you can.
Awesome.
Yeah, I would say it's quite easy to get sort of overwhelmed by the movement. There's so much going on. There are so many brilliant people and so much brilliant work going on, but at the same time, it's quite easy to feel disheartened, and that can lead to inaction. So I think it is just really important to figure out, like, what is that one main like niche that you think is really important and that you are most passionate about, and go for it and kind of just get involved, absorb as much information as you can, podcasts, news articles, and connect with others. And from there, that's your starting point.
Nice. I love it. I love it. Gabby, Julie, thank you so much for your time today. This was so important, so critical for our youth, and not even our youth, for adults, educators, everyone to know, because we all have to work in tandem together in order to be able to set this wave and set this new trend and have it as part of a focal point, whether it's in schools, whether it's, with more citizen science work, getting hands-on. It's so important for our youth to get involved, because Our youth are the future, and you too are our future as well. So thank you, Julie and Gabby, for your time. Tideturners is the initiative. Make sure to go check it out and support. I appreciate it. And both of you have an absolutely wonderful day. Thank you so much for being part of the Biodiversity Festival.
Thank you so
for
much.
having us.
Thanks.
All right. Bye.